I gotta get my
Oh,
hot
you ruined
dogs.
it. You had to go ahead and start talking right as I unmuted it. You son of a bee.
I gotta. I was
Nope.
just so
Oh, you
excited to show
ruined
you
it.
my hot
You had
dog
to go ahead
shirt.
and start talking right as I unmuted it. You son of a. And I always do. I don't know why I keep doing this. So once again, I start this off. We started off real bad. First of all, we got Chase over here puffing his chest, just taking up the entire fucking camera. Then me, of course, once again leaving the stupid video on in the background. So we got a little feedback there to start. So on the plus side, we have video this time. I'm looking. Video is working. We are not a slideshow frozen like Pack normally is. This is not going to be a podcast. We can actually see our videos this time, unlike last time. So,
Leave my damn country internet alone.
yep. So, if it's your first time watching us, I guess I'll go from the way I'm looking. Top left, we got Pack over here, the resident Saratoga expert who is now has to play these other pedestrian tracks with the rest of us plebs. The bottom left, we got West Virginia Caleb over here, and then we have the wolf in the top right over here. The wolf of, or are you the lobo? El lobo de los Alamitos.
On the West Coast, I am El Lobo. When in the Midwest or East Coast, just the wolf. For people who don't habla.
Who don't habla. And then I am Cherry Drank, Josh. And I actually am sponsored today with a little bottle of Blanton's. And I told Chase what happened, but this is actually sent to me in the mail by Polka Dot Taylor. So thank you for sending that to me. So
Long live Polka Dot Taylor.
yeah,
Way to go, sir.
I think he was upset in particular that I was drinking Eagle Rare either last stream or two streams ago, and he said, "What are you doing drinking that swill?" And so he said that he would take care of the next stream for me. So cheers, and pour some Blantons here.
You enjoy your hand grenade of bourbon there. That stuff is delicious.
I was just laughing though because Caleb was talking about it yesterday, saying he was trying to find it, and I felt kind of bad that I was like, "Oh, I got a bottle in the mail."
You can't find it out here, not anymore.
No, I do. This is literally the first time I've seen a bottle and held one in my hands. I've literally never seen it. Like the only time I've ever seen it is behind a bar. It just like does not exist out here for some. So thank you. And thank you for answering my text messages about about whiskey that I sent you. Um. Anyways, let's get to pressing business. Got this stakes card tomorrow, Kentucky Downs. Thursday did not exactly go the way I was hoping it was going to go. I think I might have hit in like two races, and I think in general, I think not a lot of us had great success on. I think that first pick five completely chalked out, and that second pick five paid 4 out of 5. So we had kind of the polar opposites there a little bit, but we're gonna take a look at here at these stakes races. I think did we want to skip over the sixth race to start, or do you guys have some thoughts on this?
See, I'm good with either. I definitely have thoughts on the sixth, but I will easily succumb to peer pressure. Pack, you're usually the most pushy person. What say you?
Wow.
And I actually
That's
look
fun
at,
right under
and
the
here's the
bus.
thing, right?
Jeez.
Like we get these like moments of silence, and I just want people to know that like we have a chat going, we talk a little bit, and I know for a fact that Pack was upset that we were possibly even thinking about skipping race 6. So like I set this up for you, Mark. This was like me supposed to be like, hey, maybe we skip this, and you'd be like, actually, however,
I'm just the worst like that. I just really am. Yeah, no, I mean, in this fixed, I think we've been talking about this all meet. We want horses that are, at Kentucky Downs that are cutting back in distance a little bit. I would imagine the 5 Super Dormy is going to go off as the favorite in here, but is a horse that's stretching out. So I don't really know if I want to go there. The 2 that I was most intrigued in here are the 10 and the 11, Alcools and Societor. Those were the 2 I kind of jumped to, even though I do want a little bit of the 5. And beyond that, I didn't really see any horse that jumped off the paper and sort of ones you had to have. I think we've been seeing this thing where Kentucky jocks have been doing real well. Bashiza has been absolutely lights out at Kentucky Downs so far. I think that's how you say his name.
Beskiza.
But yeah, Beskiza and
Beskiza.
Beskiza. And even though Mike Maker has not had a win yet, I think the 9, 9 and 10 were the 2 that I wanted the most of. A little bit of 5 as well.
When I passed through this, Super Dormy was actually one of the ones that kind of jumped off the page for me, and then not your cutback horse. In fact, going to be stretching out at this point. But looks like it's got kind of the speed to be forwardly placed, which is what we were kind of seeing with the sprints, is where you wanted to be. And then also, I kind of liked the 6. How ironic. Not saying how ironic. I chose the 6. The horse's name is actually How Ironic. Another one that's going to be stretching out a little bit. I'm a big fan of this owner, my man G Watts. G Watts Humphrey, trained by Victoria Oliver, and is going to have a West Coast invader in the irons, and Rafael Bejarano. What I like about the horse is that first start out broke its maiden, granted at Indiana Downs, but after a trouble trip, hit the gate, had a bump start, and came from a 13 back at the second call to take the race. So I liked taking a shot with those 2 horses, but if I were playing it going with my A's, those would be the 2, with a little bit of 12 underneath as a B, and 9, the Mike Maker horse as a C with Jose.
Yeah, I was gonna say the reason I guess I ended up on the 9, it is a real quick turnaround horse, less than a week, coming off that Saratoga maiden score. But if you watch that race, that horse was much the best in that race, and looked like the distance wouldn't be a problem. Horse, won by 1 3/4 in a Saratoga sprint at 5.5. That's pretty unheard of to win by those kind of numbers. Albeit Mike Maker's been real cold at Kentucky Downs, which is odd, but Jose traveled. I mean, obviously Jose's been there, but he stays on the mount. Probably had other options in here. Seemed like a real interesting one. And also, El Cools was the other horse that I wanted a bit of. Logic there being the fact that the horses that had a last out and artificial have actually done real well so far this meet at Kentucky Downs. I know there's been 3 or 4 winners that were last out on synthetic. So that was the other one I went with. Yeah, well, I had a question for you on your 6. I don't remember what it was. Oh, yeah, Olivia Victoria, 2% with, or sorry, 6% with 2-year-olds. You think that applies here? I mean, obviously Bejarano does at the mount, but
I mean, already hit pay dirt with the horse. When I can see that, I mean, it doesn't bother me as much. I mean, it might be a case of this horse kind of outclassed the field. But if it did, I think it means it's in the right place at Kentucky Downs. Yesterday we saw the tote board get lit up by Mattress Max horse with a 43-1 with the most god awful trainer numbers, and Kentucky Downs is one of these tracks where if I think a 15-1 shot might have a chance, I'm gonna use it, and seeing that morning line price was definitely very appealing.
Yeah, you guys took all the horses I wanted to talk about. So I'm surprised we're this close. My top picks were 9, 10, 11, which we already highlighted. The 6 and the 8 were probably my next 2. That 6 did have a really terrible trip. The buyer came back slow, but 2-year-old buyers are kind of all over the place. These horses improve so quickly. But I don't generally put as much stock into the buyer figures unless somebody runs something crazy like a 90. So I think those are pretty much the horses I was looking at. The last one that I did look at a bit was the 4 Cambria. This horse is undefeated through 2 starts, although never run particularly fast, at least not on the buyer scale. But Tyler Gaffleone gets the mount. He was on board for the debut victory. This horse is stretching out a little bit, but he won convincingly going 4.5. And then came back and won convincingly again, going 5.5. She can stalk and pounce. She closed last time, so I think the versatility helps. And with a step forward, I think she could be one to consider. I don't know that you'll get 12-1. I think she will take some money, but another one in here that could take what's a pretty open 2-year-old race.
No hesitation taking the lady against the boys in this one.
It's not something I love to see, by and large, but Wesley Ward spots his horses pretty well. It's not like he didn't have options with this one. She was running up in Presque Isle, had really no need to enter her in this spot. So, she only gets a 3-pound weight break, which isn't really a ton, in the grand scheme of things, especially going, 6.5 furlongs. But, at the price, I find her one that's going to be interesting. And I'm not sure that there's really any monsters in this field. So it's a factor, but not something that's going to make me not use the horse if I'm going to go that deep.
Yeah, I was going to say
Go ahead, Pac. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, man, the 12-1 morning line seems really, really generous on that 4, considering the fact of, you're talking West Ward, you're getting T-Gaff, who's been on, been very good down there. Stone Street Stables, top and bottom connections. And if you haven't noticed, the dam on the 4 is Teen Pauline. I don't remember if anybody remembers that horse, but that horse was an absolute monster. So, pedigree is definitely there, and connections all the way around. I'm amazed the morning line is as juicy as it is. I don't think you'll get anything near that. I would imagine that'll get maybe not cut in half, but close.
This is my only counterpoint to Cambria is when I look at the distances that the horse ran at Presque Isle, and this is a track that I absolutely love and pay a lot of attention to. I'm seeing that the horse fired from post 5 both times in fields of 6 and fields of 7, which at that distance really gave her a little bit of a leg up, which for me is a reason to kind of go ahead, kind of fade those efforts a little bit. Those are literally the only kind of counterpoints to anything that Caleb brought up. I mean, I think it's an interesting play, and if the price is right, I certainly think it's worth it.
Well, another interesting thing too about this 4 is that same angle that Mark was talking about earlier, that synthetic to turf angle that seems like it's been playing a little bit here. And yeah, I mean, when you see a Wesley Ward and Gaffleone horse in a sprint at Kentucky Downs, you got to take notice of it.
Especially with a Wesley Ward 2-year-old.
Yeah, my top pick here was actually the 10, which you guys have already talked about a little bit. What actually, oddly enough, what kind of my interest about this was the horse ran one race and then just got bought. Someone just offered cash for the horse and bought the horse after it didn't really stick out to me too much, the maiden win. Looking on the time form numbers, the horse is right there with that one win. I think the buyers were a little lower than some of the top horses. I think it was like a 70 or something that came back, and I saw a couple 72s, 75s. But I expect with it switching to Miller, he tends to do well first time out with the horse. I think this horse is actually in a really good spot, and I love how it's just aggressively pointed to this. The one horse, I mean, you gotta include the 9, which we've already talked about a little bit. Partly because time form is coding this as a possible fast pace. So the 9 is gonna probably sit off the pace and try and close into this. It still is a turf sprint, so You don't want to be too far back, but it looks like this 9 is going to be placed right in the middle of the pack, and it should close nicely. Slightly fast pace. The only other horse that I was also using here is actually 12, Axiomo, something like that. Looking at its last race at Ellis Park, the race, as we've talked a little bit before, completely speed favoring. The track at this point was speed favoring, and this horse just it stumbled at the start, didn't have a chance. But at least on the time form numbers, ran a really good race on the time form, even with all the trouble that it had and running against the bias. So I think that this horse is primed to run a good one here. It does look like his two best efforts have come on the dirt as opposed to the turf. But we'll go ahead and we'll take a shot here, especially if we get anything close to 8 here on the so I got the 10 here as my best pick, but I'm also gonna use 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Alexiamo, the 12 broke its maiden on at Churchill over the turf. And I'm wondering if those next two starts on the dirt weren't necessarily that they thought the horse would be best under. It may have just been what was available as far as races are concerned at a distance. They may have wanted to get the horse. There weren't, there's not a lot of like Saratoga options for 6 furlong where you can find a big money stakes and an allowance that you can actually make some money at for 2-year-olds. And it may have just been a case of, hey, let's throw this horse on dirt because we have races available, and that Ellis Park Juvenile was a big money race. So it may be this horse really does like turf, and you focus back on that, that 2-back result. And I mean, I think that the 12 makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I actually like the 12 a lot too. It's not one that I had quite on the same tier, but if you look back to that maiden score she had, or he had 3-back, he beat a horse, Field Pass, who came back to win his next start with a 74 buyer, going a route on the turf, and then came back and ran second with anticipation stakes back in Saratoga. So that was a pretty live race that he broke his maiden in. And if you assume that those dirt starts wasn't really where he was intended to be all along, then this spot makes a lot of sense. He gets an outside draw, which is where you want to be on these 6.5 furlong sprints, and you're going to get a square price because I don't think these connections are going to take that much money.
Yeah, I use the horse as my lone B in this race, and actually use it in my vertical play that I had set aside for this specific race. But used it kind of keying it in second in a part wheel, and also included with my all in third. Um, I can see it. I can completely see it. The trainer's track record going dirt to turf is a little disconcerting. It's got, as Pac mentioned, that the hot Kentucky jockeys angle with Ryan Gazziter as being another local jock that could definitely cash in. I don't dislike it. I definitely had to use it. But if I'm gonna play favorites here, I'm gonna probably end up sticking with the 5 and 6. Also, the bullet workout on August 30th is also very encouraging. Going a minute and 1 at 5 furlongs. So yeah, there's a good chance you got a live one there, Caleb.
Well, that was Josh's pick, but I support it.
Damn it.
All right. Yeah, and just one other note, real quick, and just looking at the time form numbers again. That race last out that it was in, that stakes, is coming up at least pretty significantly tougher than this race. Down. So even though the horse finished 5th, kind of a drop in class here for this. So, yeah, so I feel pretty good with this, but like I said, I think I still like.
And I've got a vertical play here in the form of a part wheel trifecta, because I've noticed the Kentucky Down trifecta's payouts, even if you think they're going to be small, they've been just monster. You get the favorite on top, and you're still cashing a $70 trifecta, which just seems insane. But I went ahead and did a 5-6 with 5-6-12, and with this track, I've gotten into the habit of just putting all in third. With the kind of prices that we're talking about, if I can get that 5-6-12 somewhere in first and second, then I feel good about getting a great payout regardless of who finishes third. So that was my one little horizontal play, or sorry, vertical play there.
Cool. Let's move on here to the race 7, the Grade 3 Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint. Caleb, why don't you start this one off?
All right. So this actually has what is probably my, I hate to use the word best bet because I don't want to take like a mortal lock favorite, but probably the horse I'm most excited to bet is this race. And coincidentally, the horse that I'm most excited to fade is also in this race. So the horse that I'm super excited for here is the 3-horse Imprimis or Imprimis. If you go back and to the Shakertown back on April 6th at Keeneland, that was probably one of the most impressive runs I've seen this year in a turf sprint. This horse essentially fell on his face from the far outside post, started off essentially dead last, and then looped the field and actually got up over a really good horse and down for nowhere, a Wesley Ward horse at Keeneland in the spring meet. I thought that run was super impressive. His run before that was equally as impressive in the overnight stakes at Gulfstream. So much so that Joe Orsino thought enough of him to send him over to Royal Ascot to take place in the King's Stand. He probably ran into what are the 2 best turf sprinters in the world right now in Blue Point and Batash, who ended up running a pretty unsurprising 1-2. But he wasn't embarrassed all that badly in that race. Yeah, it's tough to ship overseas and win. Wesley Ward's about the only American-based trainer who can routinely or even occasionally do it. So there is some concern about the first start back in the layoff states after a bit of a layoff, but the horse appears to have been working pretty consistently ever since late July, and he's 7 for 10 on the turf, and he's capable of making his own trip, whether he wants to take the lead, sit just off it, or he can close like he did last time. And I'm really excited to bet this horse. Paco Lopez gets back on, which I think is one of his only mounts of the day. He's been on board for both recent victories, and what I'm excited about is that I do think that there's a few others in here who are going to take a lot of money. So that 4-1 you're seeing on the morning line could easily be, 5, 6, 8-1 come post time.
Are you saying that he's getting a jockey upgrade from Corey over here?
I'm not going that far.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I only have 2 horses in here, and one is Imprimis. It's always tough shipping the horse back from overseas, especially first time out. But if you actually you look at the horses, two races earlier this spring, I think both those races. So I'm excited to use the horse here. The other horse that I'm going to use, and we'll talk real briefly, and maybe I'm probably crazy, but I'm going to go back to the well here with Stormy Liberal here. Looking at looking here at the time form pace projector, they're expecting that horse on the lead is going to be in best position here. And I think your 2 horses that are the fastest here are probably going to be Imprimis, Stormy Liberal. Last time out didn't run super great in a a weakish turf sprint there at Del Mar, but even that weak race actually lines up with some of the best races, some of these other horses. So. But I think second race back from the UAE bounce, I think that this horse is primed to run back to his previous form. So I think that I'm not going to need more than these 2 horses.
I was going to say that, to build upon your two horses, I mean, you just named my two A's. There's one horse I want a little bit of, and it's Linster, George Arnold trained horse. That Troy was massively impressive, came back a huge fig in the Bears speed, world. And I think the setup in here is going to be very similar. You're going to have a little bit of pace out in front, be able to sit, a couple lengths off that and fire into some pace. I think he's really, really interesting here. It seems like George Arnold has kind of figured this horse out. He's got 5 starts or something for George Arnold. I think 4 starts now. I don't know if we're talking that last could have been a top with that huge fig, but he did beat Disco Partner and Pure Sensation, who are 2 of the best turf sprinters in the country. So I think he deserves at least a look. And I think that 3-1 morning line will drift quite a bit higher, quite honestly, in this field.
Don't you think a little bit though that Linster got a little bit of a setup last race?
Yeah, I totally think he got a setup last race, and I think he's going to get the same exact setup here. He's going to have a little bit of pace out in front of him. I think there's a chance that Stormy Liberal and Infamous go at it. I don't necessarily know if Infamous is as fast as Stormy Liberal early, but I think Linster can sit just off that. You're getting the Kentucky Jack and T-Gaff, and might fall into his lap if they go a little too fast early.
No one mentioned who I have as my best long shot actually of the day in this race. The number 2, Cautious Giant. I'm really extremely interested in this horse. It's a Mike Maker trained horse, and you've got Jose Ortiz on the mount. And Jose's been riding very well at Kentucky Downs thus far. Graded stakes experience. The big drawback, and I think a reason he might be getting overlooked is no wins on turf, 50% in the money. However, just picked up by Mike Maker, who we all know is a great turf trainer who always does very well at Kentucky Downs. The other thing that really I really like about the horse is looking at the Briz pace figures is it's a very smooth, even energy distribution where it doesn't really necessarily peak or anything. It just seems like he's capable of sustaining, hitting his top speed and sustaining it from that E1, E2 all the way into the late pace. With that being said, I couldn't ignore Imprimis, and we'll be using Cautious Giant along with Imprimis as my 2 A's. The one thing that makes me wary of Imprimis is I feel like it can just be really dicey sometimes that if that Royal Ascot form will hold, or how the horse will handle shipping back. It obviously didn't. It either was very outclassed or didn't handle shipping well to Ascot with the the finish of 6, which to be fair, there might have been roughly you know 2 football teams of horses entered in that one race. And it's easy to get into trouble, but yeah, I'm very excited about Cautious Giant as my my long shot play for tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't really knock anything about Cautious Giant. I mean, at 15-1, I'd never talk anybody off him. Yeah, there isn't a lot of turf form to go off of, and what there is pretty far back. So, like you said, Maker does a good job of getting them ready to, go onto the grass. That's where they do their best work. I mean, Ortiz sees fit to take them out. I don't know that I'll be able to work this one into my ticket, but I definitely wouldn't talk anybody off of using this horse if they liked him.
Hey,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Caleb, you mentioned that your best fade was in this race, but you didn't mention who it was.
Yeah, so my best fade in this race is actually a 2-for-1, both Leinster and Stormy Liberal. More so Leinster based off the morning line. And I first off, if you think you're getting 9-2 on Stormy Liberal, I got some bad news for you. I mean, that horse will probably be 3-1, and Leinster might be 3-1 or 5-2. Leinster might be 7-2, and Stormy Liberal might be 2-1. I don't know, but these horses are both taking money. But that line on Stormy Liberal is terrible. But yeah, with Leinster, this horse is lightly raced in terms of its turf experience, but it's improved so much in its past 6 starts. It went from a 68 buyer to a 74 to a 91 to a 98 to a 108. This horse got really good really fast. 4-year-olds are often want to do those kind of things. But the Troy with number was pretty massive. That 108 buyer is a big figure. I'm not saying this horse is going to bounce per se. I know that's a very controversial word.
Don't say that word.
And Rusty Arnold obviously does excellent with turf sprinters, which does make me nervous. But at the price, I think people are going to see that big number on the buyer scale. They're going to see the fact that he beat Disco Partner, who at one time was probably one of the best sprinters in the country. But Disco Partner came back to run third in a stakes race at Saratoga. A restricted overnight stakes race at 7-5. He was beaten 4 lengths. He was third in a 5-horse field. I sort of think the 7-year-old's best days are behind him, so I think that victory may not be as impressive as it sort of appears. World of Trouble was supposed to run the Troy, ended up being a late scratch due to some vet reasons. So he's one here that he's improved so much. He's going to get bet based off that last effort. And, just on a pattern of form, I like others to improve more than I like him to repeat what he just did.
I mean, thinking back and just looking at the, what I remember from the Troy was that those horses went suicidal in that race. That Leinster got the absolute optimum pace set up. And I really cannot blame you for making that your best fade, based off of that, because people who didn't watch the replay are gonna be like, oh well, this horse just closed like a freight train and stole this race. Well, I see a 20.4 opening quarter. No horses hold on after 20.4. None in the caliber that are going to be in this race.
Stephen, I believe it's Evil Bob Dole said, so Leinster's a half the Stormy Liberal, huh?
Yeah, that's a good catch. I actually looked at Leinster in the Troy because he was a half to Stormy Liberal. I don't think I played the race at all, but it's definitely an interesting fact to catch up on. If you have look up Vassar on Pedigree Query, add any of her offspring to your stable, and if they run on turf sprinting, you should probably bet them. Clearly, this dam is throwing some pretty strong turf sprinters out. Stormy Liberal is another one who I'm going to try to beat. This one does scare me more than Leinster does. But this horse ran an absolute monster effort in the Breeders' Cup last year. Hasn't quite gotten back to that, and in fact has gone the opposite direction with decreasing buyers and every race since. It doesn't look like he was ever really asked, for his best in that Green Flash. And I'm a little concerned here. This may also just be another step on the road back to the Breeders' Cup for this horse. I'm not saying the horse is using this as a prep necessarily, but I don't imagine that Stormy Liberal and Peter Miller have had this race in mind for any length of time. They've never shipped Stormy Liberal to Kentucky Downs in the past, and this is a 7-year-old horse with 34 starts. So I'm not sure how he's going to handle the track. Stormy Liberal really seems to do better going a little bit shorter. And he's 0 for 5 going 6 furlongs, and this is a more taxing 6 furlongs than most other tracks. So the horse is going to run his race. It's what he does, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him hit the board. But as one of the 2 most likely horses that are going to be used, he's one that I think I'd like to try to get around if I can.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing I would counter that with is if Stormy Liberal brings his A game, there's no one else here in this field that can run with him. Assuming that you're talking Dubai Bounce, 2 back, and then the last race was that sort of 1 race out of Dubai Bounce. You're getting that next race back. If he fires back to anything around the Breeders' Cup time, or even his like his Eddie D or the Green Flash he ran last year, he probably destroys this field.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If Stormy Liberal finds his A game or maybe even his B+ game, he'll be tough to beat here. I'm taking a shot that this is a 7-year-old horse that has already ran really well as a 6-year-old, and I'm leaning more on the fact that he's might be getting a little bit tired, and he maybe just doesn't quite have as much kick to him as he once did. But you're right. If he brings his A game, he's going to be very tough.
Do you think there's any weird like half brother animosity between Stormy Liberal and Leinster? Like, does one think the other's mom is, or the other's dad is kind of like a deadbeat, and really should just go back to his trailer? Or do we? I can tell by the head shake from Cherry that I should discontinue this subject.
We might mention where you're from, and that this may be a regional thing for you.
Oh man, we're used to half brother animosity down here, man.
What I will add, not to totally derail that conversation, is this is the race where I have probably one of my best, like I said, best bets for the day is going to be Imprimis. I think you're going to get a pretty square value on this horse. And if I was playing on a smaller budget, I would probably try to key Imprimis with two of the longer shots that I do like to maybe run second, which is White Flag, the 6 horse, and the 10 horse, Totally Boss. They're both, I think 8-1 and 6-1 on the morning line, but I think these horses will be largely overlooked. And I understand it's asking a lot for Leinster and Stormy Liberal both to not run first or second. But I think there is a real chance that could happen. And if you can get an exacta that doesn't have either one of those in it, you're going to get paid. So I like White Flag a lot. This horse ran an excellent race in this race, actually, last time out last year, just to get beaten by a head. He's come back and actually improved since then. He's been running some better buyers since then, has really improved in his 5-year-old year. He gets Rosario on board, who was aboard for that second last year at this distance. And I just really think this horse makes a lot of sense here. He's pretty proven over the track. The horse is 11 out of 14 on the board in turf races, 6 out of 7 on the board at this distance. And I think he makes a lot of sense, as well as the 10, who, once again, you get Rusty Arnold going in a turf sprint. You get who's pretty much year in and year out the best Kentucky Downs jockey and Florent Giroux. And the horse is coming in on peak form right now. A tough beaten second, 2-back, and then first place last time out at Ellis Park, where he closed from pretty much way out of it from next to last. So I do think if the pace gets hot, the 10 could be coming late to get up for a piece of it. So I think those are two that I probably wouldn't ignore, at least in the underneath exotics. So I would probably play an exacta keying the 3 Imprimis with both the 6 and the 10.
I think actually, if we're looking at underneath horses, I kind of like the 4 Smart Remark a little bit too. Definitely going to be one of those deep closers coming off the pace. But if Imprimis does win this, or Stormy Liberal, one of these front running horses, usually you're going to want to pair that up with a horse coming from a little bit further out. So I think that your options there, the 2 that you brought up, the 10 and the 6. I also think the 4 and even possibly undrafted the 5. I think those are the horses that you can use underneath to try and pull a little bit more value out of this race, depending on how the odds go. But yeah, I'm kind of on the soft fade here on this 8. But I still like the second and third choices, second and third morning line choices here in the 3.
So, and I believe this race actually had my best bet of the day, where I decided that it's going to be a big boy $2 trifecta, using Cautious Giant and Imprimis on top. So 2-3 with 2-3-8 with 2-3-5-8, which I think covers a lot of the horses that we talked about today, or earlier. And that's one where normally I would go all, except I'm scaling up to the $2 trifecta, and if that hits, if I'm right with Cautious Giant, I've got Cautious Giant on top. If Imprimis is all we've kind of talked about Imprimis to be, then I've got Imprimis on top. And I think that's a trifecta that could really make a splash. And Mark, I've actually got a question for you on this one. why didn't you ask Cherry the same question regarding Victoria Oliver on Smart Remark? That's a goddamn double standard, and you know it.
Because I'm talking second or third here, not.
Yeah, not talking on top, you know.
We move on to race 8 here.
I think we've
I
talked
think
about
we're
every
good.
horse in this race, so yeah, we might as well move on to the next.
Every horse in this race?
The only one we did not talk about was Wet Your Whistle, who I just can't get to.
Did we get a Jazzy Times in there?
I might not have gotten Jazzy Times either, but still, I think
Nobody
we go
likes
to the next race.
Jazz, apparently. We had this conversation in chat the other day. It was me and one other guy talking about Jazz, and
I
it was not
love the
Jazzy
hard
Times.
bop. Give me the hard bop, Jazz. Cherry, I'm right there with you, man.
So race 8, what do we got here? Chase, you want to go on this one?
Sure. We're going to be looking at the Three Chimneys Ladies Turf Stakes, a grade 3 going 1 mile at Kentucky Downs. This race looked really open to me. A lot of that had to do with, you know, a lot of pretty classy horses. I'm waiting for my PDF to catch up with me here. With my first pass, excluding Coach Whip, who was reported to be an early start, I had 5 of 9 horses that I had to absolutely consider, and so I really kind of decided to spread out here. But I focused in on 3 that I would possibly use as A's. The first being just in order of post, Simply Breathless, Viva Vegas, and Mitchell Road. And with this one, kind of looking at the pace, there seems to be, you know, a little bit of early speed with Mitchell Road with misbat behavior. So I kind of lean more towards Viva Vegas as my A of A's, who's got kind of that pace pattern, or sorry, pace figure pattern that I like of seeing just the increase from E1 to E2 to late. A couple of really good horses in this race. I thought that maybe Simply Breathless could hang around with the early pace that you're going to be getting out of Mitchell Road. What we saw yesterday was so many 6.5 races. Once we finally stretched it out to a mile 70 yards, or 8 furlongs and 8.3 furlongs, however you prefer to call it, that you got some horses coming from a little bit deeper back. So that's why I tend to lean more towards Viva Vegas in this one. Ignacio Correas the fourth, or as I like to call him, IGC4. He seems to be a fairly decent trainer knocking around the Midwest. He's had some good starts at Oaklawn, does really well at Indiana Grand. You'll see him at Presque Isle. And then once again, we've got the Kentucky Jock on there with Brian Hernandez Jr. Really don't know what more to say about this one other than I think that the pace is going to set up really well for Viva Vegas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, of any race on the card, personally, this was the race that I wanted to get the most, quote unquote, cute with. Mitchell Road to me is just a massive standout in this race. If you look at her last race in Diana, probably going a little further than she really wants to go. And there are no Sister Charlie, Rushing Fall, or Homerique in this race. There's no one even in that world. She's getting massive class relief in this race, and she's cutting back in distance and also traveling down from Saratoga, which are both things that we like to see around here. Especially playing Kentucky Downs. To me, she's a horse that is single A, and I think she's the one I'm going to build from her into the next race for my plays of the day. But I think she's the most singleable horse in the sequence, and the most live horse in the sequence for me, at least. She's the one I want to get real cute with. Of course, it's going to be Rosario on a favorite, so take that for what it is. But yeah, she's. Another thing I would say is that from a pace standpoint, she's going to be effectively loose on the lead here. I think Rosario can slow us down a little bit, hopefully get her to conserve a little energy. But we've wanted to see these horses, seems like, more forwardly placed. She's definitely going to be forwardly placed in this. And although Rosario doesn't have a win on the meet yet, I think he definitely gets one here.
Yeah, but I was super with you for the 98% of that point about Mitchell Road. I think that's also a horse that is the likeliest single in the sequence. Probably, if you have a smaller bankroll and you're trying to play horizontal, pick 4s and pick 5s, this is probably where you want to look to single if you like this horse. But the one part that does worry me is the pace, because I struggle to, 5 of her 6 wins have come in gate to wire fashion, and she's capable of going fast. It's not like she has to get an easy lead. But I am a little bit afraid of I believe it's the 5-horse Storm the Hill, and especially Miss Bad Behavior, drawn to her outside the 9-horse. I don't think either of those two horses have a snowball's chance in hell to win, but I do worry that they could press the pace fast enough to screw up Mitchell Road's chances, similar to, in a different context, but to what Thais did last time in the Diana, where she just said those ludicrous fractions and kind of took Mitchell Road out of her element when she had to, chase instead of set the pace for once. I do think that she has the best conditioning cutting back from Island and Eighth. I do think she gets all the class relief in the world, and she still is going to be a single A for me. But if you're going to try to get around her, I think that the most likely scenario that she loses is if there's a pretty hot pace up front with the 5, the 6, and then Miss Bad Behavior, the 9-horse, and a closer ends up swallowing them late. So I agree that she's probably your likeliest winner. I do want a little bit of coverage in the back end with closers.
Yeah, I can't follow you with a little bit of the coverage in the back end. I mean, I think if I'm playing straight horizontals, that I would probably use some of the 2 Simply Breathless as the closer that I want coming in this field. But I think as far as horizontals and trying to slam stuff, I think she's the kind of horse that Mitchell Road's the kind of horse that you can really use on top and feel pretty comfortable with trying to catch, for me at least, trying to use her as a single here and try to catch some prices in the next. But I do agree with you that there is a chance that the 9 tries to go, puts a lot of pace pressure on early. They go stupid fast, and it does collapse. I think that's a chance. I just don't think I don't think it's likely. I think she's fast enough and classy enough that probably doesn't happen. Even though I hate the word classy.
Well, I mean, it is kind of because you're kind of the opposite classy there.
That is quite true.
Everyone taking shots at Mark.
I'm always the butt of every joke.
To be fair, I do agree with 4 that we talked about earlier. That's one of the 2 horses that I want underneath. Not necessarily underneath in terms of vertical play, but that if Mitchell Road is going to lose, I think it's going to be with a pace meltdown. And the 2 horses I think could benefit from that are going to be the 3 Calio and then the 4 Viva Vegas. I know that Chase talked the 4 quite a bit already. I mean, I agree with everything he said on that horse. So the only thing I'd like to highlight is the 3 Calio is one of the horses that almost made my best long shot in sequence. But I think Mitchell Road's just a little bit too tough that I couldn't quite give it to him here or give it to her here. Again, you're getting A+ Kentucky connections with Walsh and Caffleone. This horse is coming in on good form, improving every start. If you look back to that Ellis Park turf non-graded stakes race on July 7th, that was a very slow pace. They went almost 25 seconds to the quarter mile. They ran a 24-2 middle splits. Like, they were very slow. The 1, 2, and 3 place horses were 1, 2, and 3 around the track the entire time. The 3 Calio is the only horse to make up any ground, as she came from last to really just miss by less than a length. I think that if the race falls apart, that the 3 could be the one that picks up the pieces. And she does have a win over the local track, which I think the importance of that really can't be overstated sometimes, as this track is quite quirky and unusual. So knowing a horse can handle the undulations and the unusual track layout is pretty important. So the 3 is the one that I would use as a backup, probably as a B, as well as underneath if I was playing exactas or trifectas.
So Caleb, your logic in here is more deep closers than necessarily just off the pace closers. I mean, you pick Calio and Viva Vegas, who are both your kind of 2 deep closers in the field. I was going with Simply Breathless, who was a little bit more of a inherit the pieces from just off the pace type. Can I ask what the logic was?
I don't mind Simply Breathless that much. I had that horse kind of back and forth as either the last B I was going to use or to toss. Um, mostly it's just a factor of kind of pace is what I see it. Is that the only way I can truly see Mitchell Road losing is if the pace is wicked fast. And I do think that the two, if she's going to be close to that pace, I don't know that she's going to be able to overtake the leaders and also hold off the deep closers. And then additionally, I really don't like horses breaking from the rail, going anything less than what is it, a mile and 5/16 at this track, basically one turn. The rail is a tough spot to win. Florent Drew is one of the few jockeys who can work out trips from the rail, but the post, kind of coupled with the fact that she might be a little too close to a hot pace, kind of has me looking a little more toward the deeper closers.
Like, how funny is it that we're talking about Laurent Giroux being one of the few jockeys to navigate the course? Like, a month ago, you're just like, fuck the Frenchie. Yeah, I actually, similarly to Caleb, I actually originally had the 3 here selected. I actually ended backing it up a little bit just because I kind of have a feeling that when I looked at this race, I'm actually going 3 wide here in a play that I'm gonna kind of make my best bet, and I'll just up at the end of the end here because my best bet's actually a pick 3 that starts with this race. But I am going to go 3 wide here, only because I do think that the 7 is probably going to wire this. That's the most likely scenario here. I also am going to use a little bit of the 9 Miss Bad Behavior. If you throw out her last race where it looks like they hopped, it was just a real bad start and they just ended up pulling the horse up. The horse the figures are close on what Mitchell Road has been doing. Not saying that they're as good. Mitchell Road seems to be a little bit more of a consistent horse, but at least they're competitive. So if we do get into a pace duel with just these 2 up front, I mean, one of these 2 is probably going to. Where the issue comes up is if this 5 decides to be son of a bitch and get involved with the 2 of them, where we might have a problem. And in my opinion, I think the 3 is the most likely to benefit from this. On the time form figs, comes up with the biggest figure last time out, and although the pace on time form does show that it's going to favor on the lead or near the lead, so the 7 and the 9 essentially. If this does melt down with the 5 getting involved, I think the 3 prime spot. I'm just not really that thrilled about any of the other horses in here besides the 7 and the 9. So, this is kind of what Mark was asking Caleb a little bit about. Why not one of these slightly off the pace horses? I just don't like any slightly off the pace horses. So, in my opinion, I think the 3-1 last time out has the highest time form US figure. So if someone's going to come off the pace in this race, it's going to. And just so you know, I was playing Viva Las Vegas in the background every time. So I tried to keep it the.
Thanks.
But yeah, so I'm actually going to be starting a pick 3 here for my best bet. I normally don't like playing super spready or Mario pick 3s, but I think when we talk about the next race, there's a reason why I don't feel too bad playing a what's going to end up amount to be a $24.50 pick 3 here. Mostly because I think that this pick 3 is okay. So here I am going to go 3 wide, 3, 7, 9. If we weren't sticking with the stricter budget, I would probably come back again and play the same pick 3, but just double down on the 7. So I think that makes it an additional $8. So it would be $32 total with a dollar pick three starting with the 7 here. But
Yeah, before we jump to the next race, I was going to say I'm doing effectively the same thing that that Josh is doing here, except for I'm starting a daily double here and just using the 7, and I'm doing daily doubles into the next race with staggers. So I'll explain more when we get into the next race. But I know where Josh is going already. The next race, the 9th, looks really salty.
all right, so why don't we move on to the 9th here? I don't think anybody else had anything else really here, and I think did we all select this race for our like week favorite horse to fade? No,
Yeah,
I
but we
think.
chose different horses in here. That's the interesting part.
Well, the funny thing is we chose different horses, and then I actually picked 2 horses and picked the 2 horses that you guys selected. So, so this 9th race is the lady sprint here, 6.5 furlongs on the turf. I'll actually start off a little bit here on this one. So as I was talking about the pick 3, I'm actually going to go 4 wide in these next 2 races. Now, normally I don't like playing a pick 3 where I'm not at least one singling one leg, and 2 like never more leg in the other 2 legs. The reason I'm feeling pretty good about spreading here is because not just one, but both of the favorites in this race I absolutely hate, which is the 3 Alexandra and the 7 Morticia. I do not want any part of either of the horses. Uh, I just think that both of these horses, even though if you look, I haven't looked at the buyer figures, but if you look at the time form figures, they look good. But if these are going to be the top 2 choices in this race, like I absolutely want to get around these horses. I think that of the pace pressure that's in here, I much prefer both the 5 and the 6, which is coexistence and painting corners here. I think that these 2 horses are also going to be up here on the lead, along with Morticia. And Morticia was just, I mean, that last race, I I think everybody was off Morticia the last race at Saratoga. Weren't we all trashing the heck out of Morticia? And
Yeah.
sure enough, I mean,
Yeah.
the 2 races at Saratoga didn't win either of them, and was even money in both of those races. So the fact that they have this horse going to be taking money, like I I have a feeling that Morticia's probably going to be right around that 4-1. Um, I think if they were going to make a case for a quote unquote better favorite, I think Alexandra's probably going to be there. But I still don't like Alexandra either. Um, I just think that a 5 here, coming out of a turf stakes, yeah, finished third, but finished third by a head against a couple of these other horses, or specifically Maylily. Um, but the horse was right there. There was a couple of hot fractions, and kept up with the pace in front of it and lost by a head. Um, and you mean to tell me that this horse is going to be 15-1 versus Morticia, who has hung the last 2 races, going to be much shorter price, and at least from time form figures, is just as good of a horse. I think that if I had to pick a horse from here that I wanted most, it would probably be the 6 here, Painting Corners. Um, I like the horse on these turf sprints. I like the horses that are going to be forwardly placed, and you know, Law came in third last time out in the allowance, but I mean beat SY Sky, uh, 2 races back, and I just think that this set up a little bit better now. Maybe the fact that the one knock that we might have against this horse is going from Flavian Pratt to Ricardo Santana, which in Turf Jock ratings would probably be a very, very large drop. But I just think that this horse is going to be is going to get the best setup out of these other horses. Um, Coexistence is going to be another horse that's going to be right there on the lead. Talked a little bit about her, and then if we're going to talk about two of the horses that are going to come from slightly off the pace, I'm going to use a little bit of this four, a little bit me. Um, if you look three back, beat our favorite horse to hate, Morticia, by a neck, coming off the pace. And then we also have the eight, Cool Beans from Brad Cox and Florent Giroux. I mean, this is, I think, Brad Cox has just been on fire. I mean, what's it been? Probably like the past 3 months at this point. I mean, the dude is just keeps winning. And if there's once again, well, if there's one jock that I trust at Kentucky Downs, it's going to be Florent Giroux. I can't believe I'm saying that, but um, I definitely think that this is going to set up well for these two horses. Coming off the pace if these the three leaders end up hooking up. So I just don't see where the three or the seven like win this. And if they do win this and they beat me at sub 3-1 odds, I mean those are the horses you want to get beat. It's like that 3-5 the other day that won by a bob. Like, sure, you if you had the other horse and lost to a bob for a 3-5, like those are the horses you want to beat. You don't want to be taking short odds on these horses uh, that are consistent hangers and match up just as well with the rest of the horses. I'm going to move those horses down off of based off those facts. So um,
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I'm going to say, kind of to back up everything Josh said here about Morticia. Three of hers are what in her last four starts, she's been odds on or better. She's only won one of those. Kind of found every reason or every excuse in the book to lose. Both her Saratoga races were duds. Maybe she just didn't like the track, but she's winning at an allowance level, not at a stakes level. And I think that 4-1 morning line, I think she'll actually be shorter than that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she ends up going off the favorite in this race. And I want no part of her. I don't like her in this slot at all. I don't think she's going to get loose on the front end, and she's just a horse that I really want to fade in here. And if she beats me, she beats me. But I think she's one you can definitely get around. The other horse, the horse that I want a lot of in here that Josh just mentioned as well is Cool Beans. Cool Beans is my price play of the day here. 10-1 morning line. Horse is cutting back in distance, which is something that we really like in here. Florent Giroux has been absolutely on fire. He's a jockey trust at Kentucky Downs. And Florent Giroux with Brad Cox is a 23% win for a $3.68 ROI. So positive ROI angle there. And that's this year at Kentucky Downs. And also this year overall, they hit it 27% for $1.89. So the Cool Beans is a horse I want to use a ton of in here. And also Brad Cox on the distance cutback is a 39% trainer with a $2.41 ROI. So 10-1 on the morning line here, I think is just amazingly juicy. I think this horse is absolutely set up and prime for this. And this horse is also one that seems to kind of fire every other. And this is the other. The last time out at the West Virginia President's Cup at Mountaineer was definitely not the time. And I think this is the setup for this horse, and I really like Cool Beans here quite a lot at a pretty nice juicy price.
But before I jump into my pick that fortunately no one has gotten into, we do owe a debt of gratitude to Morticia, because in that last sequence, after we got just American butterfly wing slapped back to reality by bagging on D-Wayne Lucas, we then go on to all bag on Morticia. And if that horse had won the last race, no one would ever watch this bullshit ever again. My pick here, and once again, I'm gonna use Morticia, but just because thank you. But my pick here is the 9, Tiny Tina. There are a couple things to really like here about Tiny Tina. There's a lot of early speed here. I feel like the 6.5 furlong races, once you got past all the maiden special weight races on Friday or sorry Thursday, and you got into classier horses, it didn't look like the same sort of speedway that it was previously. You started seeing more tactical speed win, and I see a lot of versatility when I look through her running lines. Tiny Tina has won coming from 2 to 3 off the pace. She's won coming from 8 back. Didn't I'm not seeing a win on the Santa Anita downhill 6.5 furlong course. However, I like the horse having that experience moving on to another quirky type track such as Kentucky Downs, where you've got a change in elevation, you've got turns that are a little bit different, even a little surface change. So I really, I think Tiny Tina with Jose Ortiz aboard running for Phil D'Amato, that's a horse to keep an eye on at a price. I'm afraid you might not get 10 to 1, but also it's Kentucky Downs, so who fucking knows what you're going to get on this horse. But yeah, that ended up being my top pick outside of the ones that we've already discussed.
Yeah, you guys covered most of the horses I would probably bring up. I agree. Morticia is a fade. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice or 4 times in this case. I'll let her beat me at a short price, although I didn't do that last time, which you all are too gracious not to bring up. Alexandra is one that I don't want to fade completely. I hate the price. Got just an absolutely beautiful ride by Rosario last time out. I mean, really a patient ride. Didn't go wide on the turn. Waited for a hole to open up and then just slipped on through. I was kind of against this horse a little bit because I thought she needed more than the 5.5 furlong she was getting. I mean, she does get that here, which I think is going to hit her right between the eyes. I don't like the price, which is probably the biggest knock against her. And I haven't seen a ton of closers come from way out of it at these turf sprints. But there is some honest pace here, and the horse does look good. So Alexandra will make my ticket, whereas Morticia will not. I agree, a little bit of me is a long shot that I'm a piece of. And then the one horse that I do want that we have not mentioned, and I actually have this horse as a borderline A or B, is the 10 horse, Ruby Notion. So I've been following this horse basically forever, and I should probably just start off by saying that as a rule of thumb, and this could make me look dumb, kind of like the D. Wayne Lucas thing, but as a rule of thumb, I think California turf horses kind of suck. So when they move east, I don't usually want to bet them. I don't think the turf courses play the same way. I don't, it's not that pavement style course that you have out there at Santa Anita. And I tend to, of course, you get your Stormy Liberals here and there, which are the exception. But as a rule of thumb, I don't want California turf horses running on East Coast turf courses. So, I mean, nothing else really drives me away from the 6 horse except for maybe Santana, other than the fact that it's just kind of like a instilled belief that I don't want California horses, which really knocks out a large part of this field and a few of the next fields. So that's kind of what left me with Ruby Notion. Is this horse ran by far the race of her career in this race last year. She beat a very good horse in Lull. She hasn't ever really rediscovered that form. But the last race gave me some reason to think that she may be rounding back into form. She ran a pretty good third in the Smart and Fancy to Alexandra, who's back here today. Castellano ended up swinging her real wide on the turn coming for home. Rosario ended up being patient and waiting on the inside for a hole to open up. I don't know that Ruby Notion was ever going to win, but that very well made a big part of the difference between the length and a quarter margin between Alexandra and Ruby Notion. I like her on this course. I like her on this draw. And I just think that she's one who has the versatility to sit pretty much any kind of trip where she's not going to be on the lead, but she's going to be close enough to where when Morticia and Painting Corners and a few of the other speedsters start to fall apart, that she might get that first jump, which is pretty much where you want to be. You got to project a little bit more of a move forward based on her recent form, but I think that could be in the cards. She gets back to a track that she likes, and I think that she's one that I'm going to have somewhere on the ticket as either an A or a B.
Dude, I was a little worried when you were starting to talk about a horse that you want. I thought you were going to mention the 11 Stillwater Cove, who owes me a boatload of at this point.
Me and you both.
And I'm just like,
Yeah, all of us.
I am just like, I see these odds and I see 20 to 1. I don't want any part of this horse. But I swear to fucking God, if this horse wins at 20 to 1 at Kentucky Downs, like, I'm legitimately just I would like because that would have been it. That I would have got all my money back on that horse.
Yeah, after Stillwater Cole's Bolton Landing, which was very, very impressive last summer, I think I've bet her to win in every single race since then and gotten my ass handed to me. And I want no part of this horse, and I know this is gonna be the time, right? Like this always how.
Dude,
I'm the same way.
I legitimately planned my entire Friday, the Breeders' Cup, around Stillwater Cove. I legitimately had like every single play like known to man going through Stillwater Cove. I looked at those damn thoroughgraphs and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, is somebody missing something? Like this is gonna be the greatest play in the world. Like,
Yeah, I remember that day. I used a lot of Stillwater Cove and a lot of Chelsea Cloisters, and it hurt. Let's put it that way.
and then you now and lost to Bolton, who now what was the last time out? Finished fourth, right? Finished fourth and was a huge bridge jumper situation last time out. Um, hey Chase, your boy DJ likes the 3, 5, and 8 in this race. He's on board.
Ooh.
He's on the fuck Morticia train over here with us.
All right, man. And if anyone ever needs just a quarter horse tip, DJ he's a groom down at Ruidoso Sunland Park. He's really into it, wants to be a trainer someday, and man, DJ is a good guy down there in El Paso, Texas. So DJ, thank you for following and for watching.
Yeah, and before we hop to the next race, I'll just my play was of the day there was trying to get Mitchell Road in the last single her and get into this race. I want 5x to Alexandra, so to the 3, the 8 Cool Beans, and the 9 Tiny Tina, and then I want 2x the 7 over the 5, the 7, the 10. So Coexistence, Morticia, and Ruby Notion. I figure if Morticia does beat me, at least I cover the cost of the play. And if I can get somebody like Tiny Tina or Cool Beans home, 5x leverage there, it should be a fairly nice little daily double. But I definitely, I know Josh, I think, is playing a pick 3 into the next leg. I thought about doing that as well, and I think you can definitely. I know about what his structure is going to be, and I think that's a very nice setup as well.
Yeah, I got the 4, 5, 6 in here for the second leg of the pick 3. So once again, I just think that not only do these two favorites, I hate them, but they look good. They look good enough. They look good enough to where I think that they're still gonna take money, and that's the important thing. Because sometimes you'll look at some of these morning lines, and you'll be like, "Oh my goodness, this horse is 15 to 1. This horse should be like 6 to 1." And sure enough, I mean, the market corrects itself. Off at 6 to 1. These two horses that are 3 to 1 and 4 to 1, I feel real good that both of these are going to be under 9 to 2. So while I think I think Cool Beans is going to take a little bit more just because of the connections. I think Cool Beans are probably going to get closer to like 5 to 6 to 1 on. I absolutely would love to win bet Cool Beans. I think that Cool Beans and Painting Corners are really going to be the value here. But I'm covering myself a little bit with this 4 and the 5 just in case. Essentially, my second picks for this pace setup end up coming through.
So I hear a lot of love for Cool Beans. I know we probably have to move on. But is anyone worried about the fact that it looks like every victory this horse has had has been gate to wire going a route, and now gets a cut back to 6.5 furlongs where there's a real good chance she does not make the lead? Is there any concerns? I mean, at 8-1, maybe it's a risk you accept, and I get that Cox is like 40% at sprinter out. But that was the one thing that kind of stuck out to me was she had soft fractions last time, couldn't hold on, and I'm just trying to picture a scenario where a pace scenario that she wins in here, and I had a hard time coming up.
Yeah, I looked at Cool Beans and I literally didn't even use it, even though it's Flo Cox at Kentucky Downs, and you're looking at, don't make that face. It's the horse looks perfectly fine. I didn't see it. I feel like that speed figure is maybe a little bit low. I didn't like the fact that ran second at Mountaineer in a non-graded stakes race, but I mean the Brad Cox and Florent Geroux connection is pretty usually unfuckwithable, but I can't get behind Cool Beans. Also, the name is kind of stupid. That's also a big factor for me.
Well, and honestly, like, I mean, completely closure. This is the type of horse that would only be a B for me. However, the connections and the connections success and the connection success of this track move it up to an A to me for me. And I have a feeling that the horse is going to bet appropriately. I think this is probably going to be the second or
Yeah, I don't see Cool Beans being second or third choice here. I see Cool Beans. I mean, maybe a little lower than 10-1, maybe like 8-1. I think Morticia goes more off at more like 3-1, and I think that somebody like Alexandra is probably more like 5-2. And I think you're going to get a square price on Cool Beans. Cool Beans is the kind of horse that I like to make an A. It's a price horse that I can make some logical connections. The math works. There's good stuff there, but it's a little bit of a price play that I can put on top. I'm okay at playing that horse as an A from that value proposition type of an A. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on the price, but yeah, it seemed to, I mean, and I do understand the pace setup and how's that. I sort of toss that Mountaineer race, the fact that Mountaineer's turf course plays a little funky, and I like the idea of a cutback. But I mean, I get, all of your concerns are valid, but at the right price, you can toss out those concerns, I guess.
Yeah, completely.
Kind of like the Raiders with Antonio Brown.
Yeah, that's a great analogy to use here. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool Beans, the Antonio Brown of Kentucky.
All right, why don't we move on to race 10 then? I don't think we have anything else to cover here. 10 is actually, I think here. This is KY Turf Cup. I'm assuming it's just Kentucky Turf Cup. Unfortunately, I'm looking at the time. Once again, like, I think this is another one of these wide open races here. It's a 1.5 mile turf, and this is another one of those spread legs for me. Caleb, why don't you take this?
Yeah, sure. I agree with you in the fact that I think this race is probably more open than it might first appear. And I think the race is going to kind of come down to who can really get this distance, at this course. It's a 1.5 miles. It's got a real hairpin left turn, hairpin turn in the beginning, and then turn coming home. It's unusual. And I think a lot of people are going to look at a horse like the 10 Arglo and say, well, he's won this race last year. He's got speed figures. He's got the right connections. And I think this horse is going to take a lot of money. I don't hate Arglo, but I don't love him either. This is a horse that I've been betting for weeks, if not months. And he always makes me think he's going to win and then finds a way to not win. He's like the, older uncle of Tacitus. But basically, I mean, he had every right to win in the, Man of War where he just couldn't get by Channel Maker. And then the Belmont Gold Cup was the one where he got beat by the German invader who didn't really look that good on paper. And then last time he gets wired by Channel Cat in the Bowling Green. Okay, maybe he had an easy lead there, but at some point at a short price with a number of excuses, I'm a little bit gun shy with this horse. I think that his last win literally came a year ago, almost to the date, at this track, at this race. And he hasn't won since then, although he still ran respectable figures. He's the kind of horse that I'm probably not going to completely ignore, but he's definitely a horse that I don't feel comfortable with using prominently or confidently on top. Would definitely be using a lot in the intermediate, second and third positions of tickets.
Question from the chat: which is higher, Pillar Mountain's finishing position or the Bears' offensive points next?
Now that is a good question. The Bears scored, what was it, 3 points?
Yeah, it was a fucking embarrassment. I actually, so the funny thing about yesterday is I was actually playing a video game. I was sitting on my computer playing a video game, and I had, I have my, Infinity Stream or whatever up on my second monitor here. And, I was literally doing something else other than watching the game, and I still felt like I wasted 3 hours of my life, even though it was just on the other TV. Oh my god, I can't believe I fucking sat through that entire game.
Josh, was it you that asked on Discord, "Oh, hey, when's the Bears game?" And then I was like, "Now." I think that happened.
Yeah, I was just being a jackass. But it was real funny because I do a daily fantasy league with my buddies. So every week, we had to toss in a lineup. We usually do Sundays, but because we're local to Chicago, we do Thursday nights when the Bears are playing Thursdays. So I get a text message 10 minutes before kickoff. Hey, you didn't get your lineup in yet. I'm like, oh shit. So that's the only reason I knew the game was going on, is because I legitimately got a text message 10 minutes.
Yeah, to answer the question, I'm assuming we mean higher as in further back. So that would mean I will take Pillar Mountain in that one. I don't think there's any way Pillar Mountain hits the board here, so I will take Pillar Mountain over the Bears, which just sounds horrible.
So Pillar Mountain was my long shot play of the sequence, amongst a few others. But this is a horse who got pretty good lately, and I'm not really going to hold the Sword Dancer against him. He was Annals of Time. I was against that horse, and he proved to be that much the best. Sadler's Joy, Channel Cat, Channel Maker. These are all horses who would be significantly favored if they were in this spot. So I don't think there's any shame in getting beat in a race like that, going 3 turns. So I think that in this spot, Pillar Mountain has the pedigree to where he can run pretty much forever. Out of a Galileo Dam and a Danehill, second sire, out of a Kodiak sire. The horses run speed figures that are a little bit light, but he's also pretty lightly raced. He only has 7 races as a 4-year-old. He's only had about 4 races in his 4-year-old season, and each one of those has gotten progressively better, both on Beyers and on Thoroughgraphs. So he's not a horse that you're going to single when you're going to say, okay, he's the most likely winner. But he is the kind of horse that has improved every start as a 4-year-old. Pletcher hasn't sent a ton of horses to Kentucky Downs, and he gets a rider in Beskiza, or whatever we decided his name was, that
Beskiza, it's definitively Beskiza.
And he's been riding lights out at Kentucky Downs. So, Pletcher doesn't often send to Kentucky Downs. He doesn't often wheel horses back on 2 weeks of rest. And there's enough here that kind of leads me to believe that this horse could be pretty live in this spot. And, you would have to project a little improvement to get up to that 100-ish Beyer plateau. But I think he's the one that has every right to improve, and is you'll probably get every bit of 10-1, if not better, when this post time goes off.
Yeah, I just want no part of Pillar Mountain. I realize Todd Pletcher's shipping, and Beskiza's getting out, getting up. Rosario's here. He didn't decide he wanted to stay on the mount. And you know, like somebody like a Johnny Velasquez doesn't ship as well. So I mean, Pillar Mountain to me is just a massive class level below these. You know, if this race was an optional 62, which he seems to be able to win, I would be all over him. I just think that there are a number in here that absolutely tower over him. You know, I mean, I think for me, I wanted Zulu Alpha and Arklow on top. Both of them have that ability to go over 100, you know, Buyer Fig at this distance. I think that's, you know, that's 10 buyer points, you know, above what somebody like a Pillar Mountain can really pull off at this distance. So I wanted a lot of those too. And, you know, the other two horses I wanted, and I realize I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I wanted a little bit of Hello Don Julio, the 8, and I wanted a little bit of Bigger Picture. Those, you know, Bigger Picture is just a massively consistent horse, can definitely get the distance, won the Elkhorn at this distance, you know, and so he's a, you know, real interesting horse here. And Hello.
Oh, you talked too long. You went the entire time.
We were doing
We
so
did
well.
so well.
Time I was
It's
doing so well.
legitimately got to be something with like your microphone turning off after.
I don't know what it is, but anyways, Hello Don Julio in here as well. You know, if I was hoping for a little rain in the area, I was hoping for some soft turf for him, which would have definitely moved him up quite a bit. But he has some you know, back class, as we may say, in here, and he's got some figs, you know, going back into the last couple years, which definitely fit in here. And I think at a 15-1 morning line, he's a horse you can use a little bit of as well. Even though I really want more than 9 and the 10 on top.
Yeah, I know you guys have talked a little bit about Sword Dancer, and Pillar Mountain's not so great performance there. Sword Dancer. I kind of like a horse that's coming out of the Sword Dancer, and that's the 12 Noble Thought is actually going to be my long shot here. So at least once again, you know, we all use slightly different rules here. That time form number last time out, pretty good, 118 here, which puts it around like what, a high 90, like 95, 98 buyer or so. I don't know what the buyer came up on this horse, but
97.
97, yeah. So right there. So not quite 100, but I think I move this horse up a little bit. The connections with Mike Maker, Leparoux here at Kentucky Downs. I know Maker, once again, we talked a little bit. He's cold. He hasn't won at Kentucky Downs. Apparently, he sacrificed his Kentucky Downs power in order to win 10 races at Saratoga this year. So maybe he just has sent more of his loaded horses to Saratoga or something. But I still think that that this combo is a good chance to do something here, especially underneath. In my play, my best bet, I actually did not use this 12th horse. I might try and find a way to squeeze it in somewhere here, or I think if the odds are good enough, this might just be one of those straight win bets, especially if it's anywhere around 15. You know, go ahead, put $10 on there. It could make, depending on what you're, you know, how much you're playing, that could make your day, or make up for the rest of your day depending on how it's going. I got 4 horses here though that I'm going to combine into the last leg of my pick 3 here, and I think we've talked about all of them here. I'm using both the 9 and the 10. Now I do like Zulu Alpha better than I like Arklow. The only thing about Arklow is that Arklow did win at this race last year, so I'm giving it a little bit of a bump because of that. I don't really know. This is going to be kind of a crazy race to try and build verticals around. So if I'm still live in the pick 3 here, coming to this race, I'm probably not going to mess with verticals. Maybe just like I said, a lone win bet on this 12. And then probably key my 4 horses maybe over the 12 in a try or a exacta here. But I'm going to use both the favorites, the 9 and the 10 here. I think both of them are. I think the Zulu Alpha is probably the most likely winner here. But I'm going to use them equally here. I'm also going to use the 5 Bigger Picture, which we did talk about a little bit. coming out of United Nations. Horse is going to get the distance. Won the Elkhorn, just like Pack was saying before. So I'm pretty excited, especially if we're able to get this kind of price on another maker horse with Gaffleon here. I think this horse is in with a big shot. If this is one of those horses, if you're getting all of 6, 7, 8 to 1, this is another one that you definitely should look at to try and get a win bet in. Because even though I think Zulu Alpha and Arklow are the more likely winners, I don't really want any piece of them on a win bet at 7 to 2, 5 to 2, what they're going to go off at in a 12-horse field. And if they do go off at that low of a price, you're going to get a much better price on a horse like the 5 here. And then my other choice, which is going to be the 6, factor this. This is kind of more of a, I guess, a bias play, if you will. I know we haven't seen. I mean, it's not Saturday yet. We haven't seen how the track's playing. But this 6 is got speed, and is probably going to be the most likely horse to get out there in front. And while the 9 and the 10 are definitely classy enough to win this, and definitely, I think at this distance, it doesn't really matter what kind of pace setup they get. I think that they can get the distance. I just really like the 6, especially if he's left on a very soft lead. I think that he's got a chance to wire this. The only kind of knock I kind of have on it is I see Giroux's not on board. It looks like we got Bridge Mahan instead, which no offense to Mr. Bridge Mahan, but I think at Kentucky Downs, like, you can get Giroux, you want Giroux, track. So probably my only knock against this horse, but at the price, I think this is another horse that's in here with the shot outside of the 2 favorites as well as the 5 here. Big.
I don't know if just like all the imagination left my body before I started looking at this race or what, but I mean, you've mentioned all the horses that I think you have to use in this race, and my horse that I'm probably going to use as my top choice. But looking at this, it looks like 5, 9, 10 case closed, and I'm probably going to end up taking Arklow as my number 1 pick. I mean, we talk about the cutback. I mean, the horse went a mile and 3/8 last out, but also runs at 2 miles, runs well at 2 miles, has won at Kentucky Downs. It's got the connections. Um, the only other horse that I showed any sort of interest towards outside of those 3 was My Boy Jack, and that's simply because whenever Ryder Dave and I talk about him, we either refer to him as Simple Jack or Stupid Ass Jack, and that's yeah, probably not going to bet him based off of that. So yeah, to me this was the easiest race and the one where I took the fewest horses with just the 5, the 9, the 10, Arklow, Bigger Picture, and Zulu Alpha.
Your boy DJ over here again. On the 6 and the 9. So me and him are, we're like this. It's probably because we each got Z's at the end of our last name. But this he's also tossing in the 11 Campaign, which upon first look, I was a little interested. Now I think that if he didn't run that last race at the Pacific Classic, maybe I would be a little bit more interested. Because that last race was a bit of a clunker. But a little interesting. I mean, we're not really worried about Campaign getting the distance. Campaign's definitely not embarrassed himself over the turf. Won an allowance here last year at a mile and the 5/16. So, what do we think about Campaign here?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you want to talk about the perfect horse and jockey combination, Rosario up on campaign, Rosario on your absolute deadpan closer, hoping they go a little bit fast. And Rosario up for Sadler has been a phenomenal, win percentage. It fits at 43%, $2.67 ROI. I don't necessarily love the horse in this spot going back to turf. It seems from Sadler like a desperation move. What he couldn't. The horse did again win the Tokyo City, so it seems odd they're trying to put him back on turf. He's got pedigree top and bottom that make it seem like turf would be a good spot for him. But when I look back when Asmussen had him, the figs don't really fit turf wise with what's in this field. So if the price was right, maybe it's a horse I would use. 5-1 probably isn't the right price. I would probably need more like 8 or 10-1 before this horse becomes interesting for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 11 campaign is the ultimate wild card in this race because you look back, and I agree with everything you said, Mark. His numbers back on the turf definitely aren't good enough to win this race. He was running those as a 3-year-old, going distances 3-year-olds don't typically go, racing against elders. And then since the barn change and the surface switch, has been doing a lot better as a 4-year-old. Has he been doing better with the surface switch, with the barn change? Has he just gotten better? I don't really know. What I do know is the horse is a perfect 2 for 2 over the course at Kentucky Downs here. He's got 2 for 3 on the turf. The distance won't be a problem. I think the biggest issue for him is really going to be the pace setup ahead of him. If you look at his recent dirt races, he's caught in a lot of slow paces lately. The Pacific Classic was not quick. Back farther than that, the Brooklyn Invitational was not very fast. He actually overcame the slow pace in the Tokyo City to win. But again, I'm just not sure he's going to get the setup in front of him that a horse like him really needs. Because he's going to be every bit of 20 lengths back when this thing starts. So I think that it wouldn't surprise me if he wins. But I agree, 5-1 seems short to take on a horse like this. I'd like to see a little bit better.
Yeah, it's crazy. The horse won twice last year, 7 days apart on this track. And the even crazier thing, at least to me, is that broke his maiden going 1.5 miles on this, all right, and then came back 7 days later and won 1.5 miles.
With Santana up 5 days later, you
Yeah,
have to know with Santana.
like the thing is like horses. First of all, horses don't really run. I guess 1.5 miles on the turf isn't as crazy as like it would be on the dirt. But horses don't come back 7 days after running 1.5 miles on the turf. So that's pretty crazy. And I until I saw DJ mention 11. I was just kind of looking at the last couple running lines, and I rolled down one more. I'm like, oh, he won at Kentucky Downs 7 days earlier. Okay. So you always got that chance for that horse for course angle with him, but I kind of agree with you guys. I think campaign is more interesting if we were talking, I don't know, 10, 12-1. I think the horse is a little bit more interesting. I think of the deep closers, I definitely want 10 more than I want the 11, and if they're even within like 4 odds within each other, like I'm taking the 10 all day.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that.
Are you gonna use my fancy graphic that I made for us?
Yeah, and then I realized
work.
that I messed some stuff up here, and I also misclicked it open a couple times. And now I'm navigating it really kind of shittily here, and see if I can cover up my face here. I don't know if you guys can see that. But we took some time to try and build some plays here a little bit. And we tried to talk about them a little bit here. So we'll start with Caleb here. We talked about these already. His best bet's going to be 7 there with the 3 horse.
That's Imprimis.
Imprimis, there we go. He's got a $10 win bet there. So we tried to base this off of a $25 budget. So not really. We're not really talking kill bet here. Like oh man, why am I blanking his name? Our boy Mike Maloney there from Betting with an Edge talks about the kill bet a little bit. But we're talking, for some of us, I mean, me personally, I normally play like $100, so that's like a day's worth of betting for me. So $25 is going to be about a quarter of that $100 better's budget, and you want to set that money aside to kind of make a good bet that's either going to cover your day or is going to be something that you're going to be able to build off of there. So Caleb's going to use that with on the threes and use $10 to win on the 3 with a $2 exacta with the 6 and 10 over the 3 here. And that can't fault that. I mean, it looks like a great play here, especially if we get any bit of like 3. He went with the 7. Pillar Mountain, also Evil Bob Dole's favorite horse here in the 10th race as his long shot pick, and he's going to be fading the 8 in race 7, our bad favorite here. Oddly enough, since we're talking about the bad favorites, apparently myself, Chase, and Pack, apparently we decided all to fade the same horses. Which is Alexandra and Morticia. I legitimately put both of them down, and then it was just kind of funny to see that you guys also faded that horse. I'm gonna be playing the 50-cent pick 3 here. Normally I would try and play this for $1, but because it's Kentucky Downs and because I'm fading the 2 favorites here in the middle, I don't feel bad playing this for 50 cents. I think that this is going to pay. If this hits, this is going to pay pretty good. I got the 379 in race 8. That's going to be Callio, Mitchell Road, and Miss Bad Behavior. We might get some fireworks early here with Callio or Miss Bad Behavior. I still think Mitchell Road's the best favorite here. If you have the budget, I would probably come back and play this pick 3 for another 50 cents or at least $1 with just a 7 in the flag as kind of reinforcement of that. In the 9th race, I'm going to be fading the 2 favorites here, which is going to be 7 and 3. So I'm going to go with the 4, 5, the 6, and the 8 here. And then I'm going to close it out with the 5, the 6, and 10. Gonna be a $24 play for 50 cents. Like I said, if you got a little bit more money, I would come back and double down on the 7 in the first race, and I would maybe, if you can, try and toss in the 12. Noble Thought. I accidentally sent Chase that the horse's number was 10 as opposed to 12 apparently, but Noble Thought is my pick here in the 10th race as the most likely to upset here. The Wolf of Oak Lawn, Chase over here. Maybe I'll uncover his face. Oh, he's texting. He's gonna be going with that $2 trifecta in race 7 with the 2, the 3 over the 2, 3, 8 over 2, 3, 5, 8. Gonna be Cautious Giant and Imprimis over Cautious Giant, Imprimis, and Leinster, and then Cautious Giant, Imprimis, Undrafted, Leinster, and Totally Boss. He's going to try and hit that try for $2, and these tries at Kentucky Downs paying great. And then we have we go from the Wolf of Oak Lawn to Prince of Saratoga. What's your title over there?
I don't know. Yeah, make something up.
The Duke. I think
the Duke of Saratoga.
Yeah.
Although
Works for me.
Duke Matisse might have a problem with that. He's going to be going with a nice, probably a much more efficient bet than myself and Chase have with a split daily double here. He's going to have the 7 in the first race. He's going to try and link that up with the 3, 8, 9 in the 9th race. So He's hooking up the Mitchell Road with Alexandra, Cool Beans, and Tiny Tina for $5. And then he's got Coexistence and Ruby Notion for $2. So, yeah, I mean, my guess is the lowest payout you might see there is on that 7-3 daily double. But I mean, I've seen these chalky daily doubles paying almost $40. So, I mean, if you can hook that up for $5, you're looking at a cool $100 there pretty quickly. So, um, any last thoughts on any of those bets?
One thing I would add to that for my bet is that I would play an exacta with Imprimis on top. I think it's written backwards.
The 3 over 6 and 10.
Yeah, I would play that heavy, and if you want to play 2 to save with him in second, that's fine. But I would make the main exacta 3 over 6-10.
Yeah, I blame Chase. He probably just did what you were.
Well, that's fine.
That's likely.
We did. I did hold this up quite a bit, and we did try to do this. But go ahead and I can post this up. Or I could not post them. That way, there is no proof, and we can delete this video after Deanway Lucas ships a horse in that we are not expecting, and just wipes all our bankroll.
And Morticia runs us all into the ground later.
Oh man, if Morticia wins, man, this is gonna. Any closing thoughts here on this card? Do you guys look at any of the other races? Anything else? Any other plays you guys want to talk about? Or
Just my closing thought is Kentucky Downs is a treasure and should be treated as such. That's really it.
my thought is if I hit anything at Kentucky Downs, I think I might be live streaming Shot 10 with some bourbon. So
Yeah, I was going to say Kentucky Downs has been a little rough on me, but the quality of racing there and the depth of fields is really, really impressive. It's kind of place where payouts are really phenomenal, and it's an interesting track. It's a track if you never watched before. It's very cool to watch a race there. Very European feel to it, a lot of ups and downs, crazy long front stretch, not an oval shaped track. It's a really cool place. It's something I'm new to, but I've very quickly started to. It's one I'm going to have to definitely take a visit to at some point.
yeah,
the track's so fun.
Evil Bob Dole just said Morticia wins going away. He's going to be playing a $50 pick 3 Mitchell Road, Morticia, Pillar Mountain.
Well, at least 2 of those 3 look right.
Oh, someone's gonna make a meme out of that on Discord.
Oh my goodness, we're setting ourselves up here.
We are.
If any of you guys watching have not subscribed yet, because I'm tired of posting this super long URL, and I think we need like 2 more subscribes so we can get the shortened one. So please help me out so I can stop having to copy and paste this stupid thing to Twitter and to Discord all the time. Until then, we'll be on tomorrow. I think I'm free most of the day, so I think I'll be on channel betting most of the day away, and then try to make it to Shot 10.
Guys, some ships are made of metal, some ships are made of wood, but the best ships are friendships, and that's the way it should be.
There's no way that's how it ends.
All
All right, guys.
right,
Yeah.
good night, everyone.
Well, I can't top that.